All right, everyone, it's time for a little bit about contentment from sort of a paganistic perspective, more or less, a little bit of an occult perspective here. Because you've got to understand, as an occultist and pagan who believes in established biological fact, there's evolution and so forth, when I look at the world, essentially the way in which progress occurs is through struggle. It's through competition. It's through one thing succeeds, does well, enjoys something, usually to the detriment of something else. Now, there is mutualism. There's, within food chains and so forth. But ultimately, how evolution has structured the biological world around us, the pragmatic, physical realm that we look around us and see. Essentially, the way that works is some life forms, they're gathering energy from, non-biological sources, essentially, even the sun and so forth. They're producing, they're reproducing and doing their thing. Other things consume them, and then some of them consume one another. Humans being, related to the primordial ancestor of chimps, essentially. Be better if we were closer related to bonobos. The world would be a less violent place. Although then maybe we'd still be in the Stone Age because, again, lack of competition. Now, bonobos, by the way, they have orgies in order to solve their differences. Chimpanzees rip each other apart. So which one are we probably related to? Now look into a nuclear facility and you'll be able to tell pretty quickly. Ultimately, though, I would say, therefore your life will have struggle. This struggle can be either overcome or it will overcome you. In some cases, it's something minor. It's like, well, I have to walk up this hill. You get a little bit winded, but ultimately you don't die. If you fail to walk up the hill, you go back down, I guess. Or you take a car, maybe, because your chimpanzee ancestors understood the idea of an opposable thumb or a chisel. Very interesting. In the pagan sense, though, I would say one part of it, and this is most common in sort of the European pagan tradition, the idea of struggle being a good thing, especially for males usually, the sort of the warrior mentality, the idea if you die in battle, that's like the surest way to paradise, stuff like that. There's an appreciation for struggle, an appreciation for harshness within nature and without nature, sort of in the human context as well. The other part is a stoic acceptance. Not stoicism in maybe in the more pure sense. I'm an Epicurean. I believe that joy is the highest pleasure. I just keep it simple and think it should go along with the NAP for moral reasons. For ethical reasons related to my understanding of philosophy, more or less. But there is an element of stoicism to it as well. Simply accepting that there will be struggle. For instance, you'll get sick at some point. Well, you might get better, you might die. It's not a whole lot you can do necessarily under all circumstances. You might get cancer. Maybe you get cured, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't even seek a cure. You're like, well, the treatment is worse than the disease. I got 10 years to live, or I can get this chemo, and I got a 50-50 chance, and I'll fucking die anyway, and I'll just suffer for the next year and linger on and then keel over anyway. Which do I want to do? Maybe you just don't want the treatment at all. Maybe you're already in your 70s or something. You're like, what the hell am I going to do? The chemo will kill me faster than the cancer will in some cases. By the way, usually the case with men with, I believe it's prostate, or is it colon cancer? One or the other is usually slowly progressing, appears later in life, so they don't even bother to treat it half the time. Like, unless it's a freak case, happens before 60, 65. I can't remember which cancer it is. But within the pagan model, though, there's no attempt to avoid. Like, conflict is a good thing. It's not bad. It's good to compete. It almost fits in greatly with the elements of capitalism. If you read Might is Right, which was the primordial document from which the Church of Satan's satanic Bible actually came, LaVey's satanic Bible, it's very paganistic. There's an element of sort of the heathenism, the appreciation for that struggle. There's a libertarian element in the more political sense. It basically is a political document if you read it properly. And so this all fits in with the pagan. And certainly within the occult. I understand Satanism is not necessarily the best example to use because there's no occultism in the Church of Satan. By the way, everyone, the Church of Satan is an atheistic organization. They don't believe in magic in the literal sense. It's psychodrama, it's Shakespearean. Some of it is symbolic, or it's meant to evoke a psychological response. In others, that's how they understand it, as a psychological principle. I go beyond that into the more of what they would call the spooky woo realm, but that's what they believe in. They're essentially an atheistic order and vaguely apolitical at this point. They don't do the activism thing. That was LaVey and Boyd Rice and some of them trolling for the most part. But it's good to be content. It's good to have that sort of stoicism, deal with the fact that sometimes life is going to hand you things that are a little aberrant. Even well-laid plans are foiled and so forth. But it's good to just, not just to sort of fucking deal with it, but enjoy the struggle. If you think that you can overcome something, you should try. generally speaking, unless you don't believe in yourself. Maybe someone else can do it for you. It is possible to have others step in and aid you in things sometimes. But you should be happy with the situation as it is. Is it tolerable? Think about it for what it really is. Sometimes we overthink things. We get we panicky, start thinking too negatively. We're like, oh my God, there's this thing. I can't deal with it. And people fucking flip out and stuff. Don't bother. That's just a waste of time. Don't even waste any time thinking like that. Just think of ways around it. Use your brain. And if there are no ways around it, yes, you might have to deal with something that you consider negative. Or maybe it's tolerable, but it's not quite what you wanted. Maybe it's like, well, I wanted this car, but I can't finance it, so I have to get this one. I don't like it. Well, you're still getting a car. Deal with it. Can you get to and from work? Is it really that bad? Is there anything particularly horrible about the situation? Sometimes it's an element of first world problems. That meme about people, my toast didn't come out right. They ran out of lox at the cafe, and I couldn't get the smoked salmon on my bagel. I'm really, really upset. They ran out of the latte machine wasn't working properly. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? I have to drink regular. I have to go to Dunkin' Donuts get a regular fucking coffee, the kind Dennis Leary always wanted. Okay, I'm sorry for your loss. It's a really big problem, but you're gonna have to deal with it. The cappuccino machine's broken. They ran out of lox. Again, is some of these little things, some people overthink them, they get all upset, and then it distracts them from other things. They could be being productive, and they could be looking for ways to, maybe they innovate. If you see a problem, you can also innovate your way around it potentially. It is possible. There's a great deal of knowledge out there. There's an inventor inside of everyone sort of waiting to get out anyway. It's just a matter of the willpower. And it fits in with sort of that idea of the iron will or will to power sort of thing. In the more loose sense, I'm not talking maybe the blood and soil sense, but in the more loose philosophical sense, human willpower is a great thing. The will to struggle through things and survive has built the world around us. Look at the technology I'm using right now to talk to you, whoever you are on whatever platform you're seeing this on. Was it there 20 years ago? Could you have done this then? No. It took a lot of willpower to build all this shit. Nerds, incel nerds in their basement with their long-suffering parents tinkering around with some crapple computer back in the mid-90s. It's basically how the internet came to be, at least in its modern form. People that were considered obsessive and weird and, kind of maybe societal outcasts at a certain time. Now they're billionaires. Well, that's a lot of willpower. Some of them struggled for decades. Some of them, they lived off ramen and Red Bull for a very long time, and then all of a sudden they became millionaires, and now they're world leaders. So you've got to think of it that way. And sometimes this goes along with having confidence as well. If you have no self-confidence, it's harder. First, you have to admit the fact that you can succeed. Some people cut their own nose off to spite their face. They start something and they're like, well, I don't think I can do this. Well, that's not how you want to approach something. I think I made a separate video on that topic. First, admit that you can succeed. Start trying, then allow yourself to do so. It's not always going to work, but then you have a chance. You have zero chance if you operate from the perspective that you'll fail. It'll never happen. Half the time you won't put in your full effort even if you do try. Half the time you won't even allow yourself to try. I use the example of my singing. It took me a very long time to have the confidence to put my voice on the internet in a non-satirical fashion. The response is usually positive. I may not be God's gift to the world as far as my vocal abilities, but I can sing. And now I don't have to worry about being on my deathbed and saying, well, I wish that I had put music out there when I was younger. When I was young and beautiful, so to speak, when my voice wasn't all crackly from my throat cancer or some shit like that. It could happen. Why take the risk? Take the plunge and do what you need to do, and then be content with the result. It's a good way to live your life. And be an Epicurean too. You should enjoy the little things. It's a lot easier to attain than sports cars and mansions and all that bullshit. The amount of effort it takes to upkeep that kind of lifestyle isn't even worth the pressure for a lot of people. You'll end up making yourself more miserable. You'll keep seeking more and more things to make you content. So I collect shiny rocks, gems or something. Well, I want more and more and more, and eventually it just floods your life. I want to collect, plushies or something like that. By the way, plushies coming never. Link in the description to my website, however. That's about all. Peace out.